In this lesson, we'll begin the initial modeling for our main project. Okay, so we're going to begin in this lesson actually building out the sort of stylized airplane that we're going to be using as really the project that we're going to be building from this point forward. Now, something that I want you to keep in mind is that when it comes to modeling in Softimage, there are many ways and many different tools that we can use to get all very similar results. So as you're starting to watch me use some of these different modeling tools, really keep in mind that the tools and the methods that I'm using usually are by no means the only way to build the shape that I'm using. What I want you to do is be able to see lots and lots of different modeling tools, and so you can start to get some ideas of how they can start to be used in your own projects. So again, keep in mind that typically as I'm building something, there many times will be other ways to build it using different tools and different techniques, but still get the same result. So this will be a very open-ended process, as we'll see. So let's start by building out the main body of our plane. And the way that I want to show you how to do this is by actually using a series of curves. And we'll actually build out these curves and then actually build a surface across those to generate our main piece of geometry. So let's start by get primitive. We'll start by making a curve, and we'll start with a circle. All right. Now, as I zoom into this circle, if I were to press the T key on my keyboard, you can see that there are actually quite a few points that make up this circle. Now, as a good rule of thumb, what I find is that by starting with a lower amount of geometry, it starts to make it much easier to come in and start to shape our geometry, move some things around, and really just as a general rule, it's much easier to come in and actually add geometry where you need it, as opposed to trying to take geometry away. So just as a matter of personal preference, I like to start with something a little bit lower. Let's take it from 16, maybe down to something like 12. All right. So again, tap my space bar on my keyboard to get out of this component mode. Now let's start by taking this piece of geometry and we'll pull this forward. This will be sort of the front nose of our aircraft here. Press Control D on my keyboard to duplicate this curve or this piece of geometry that we're working with. And I'll pull this back to pretty close to the origin, not quite all the way there. Now I'll just simply duplicate this curve again, Control D. Now you'll notice that Softimage actually remembers the transformations that was applied to this first circle, and whenever we press Control D again, it applies that same transformation once again. Now in my case, I really don't want this to be quite that far back. I want this one to be a little bit closer. So we'll make one more circle, again, Control D. And again, this time Softimage remembers that this curve was pulled forward, so whenever we hit Control D again, it winds up here. Well, that's okay, we can just grab that and pull it back a little bit further until we have something like that. Okay, very nice. Now, let's come in and take these different curves and actually build a surface across those. Now, what we want to do is actually create a new surface. So this is going to be found under the Create menu. We're going to create a surface mesh, and we're going to do this by lofting several curves together. Now, when it comes to lofting, it is very important to keep in mind the order that you choose your curves. So Softimage will actually loft these curves and join them together based in the order that they're selected. So it's very important that you select these one by one, starting at the front, and then shift select each curve one by one, so that way Softimage knows to actually connect them together in this order. Now with these selected, let's go up to Create, Surface Mesh, and Loft. Okay, and if I were to switch this to a shaded view, we can actually now see this new surface that has been generated between those. Now what's interesting is I can still come in and make some changes to, let's say, the number of divisions that were added between here. So if I wanted to add maybe just a few little divisions in here, I'll set that to maybe 3. There we go, that should work. That way I have enough geometry to come in here and still manipulate if I need to. So I can just close that. Now here's something that is really nice about the way that Softimage actually generates these surfaces. With this new piece of geometry, it actually remembers that it came from these original pieces, these original curves, I should say. So if at any point in time, if I were to grab these curves and switch to my Translate tool, again, just press the V key on my keyboard. If I were to grab that curve and move it around, you can see it still maintains or moves that piece of geometry that was created from those curves. So what I could do is come in with that curve selected. If I press the T key on my keyboard, I can come in and grab some of these points, just tag some of those. Again, press the V key on my keyboard and start to move some of these up. Again, press and hold T to make a new selection. Press and hold T. Grab some of these points and pull those up. I'm just sort of trying to grab a few of these and just kind of reshape this whole back end. So if I were to grab some of these points, press the X key on my keyboard to switch to my scale tool, and I can actually scale to pinch those together. So maybe just pinch those guys together. Again, go to T, back to X, and pinch those guys in. Maybe pull them down a little bit as well. So you can start to see where we can come in and start to get some really, really nice shapes in here. Maybe grab some of these as well. Maybe pull those up just a little bit to round that out. All right, and again, just a matter of coming in here, grabbing a few of these points here and there. I'm just trying to shape those in a little bit more. Again, maybe press the X key on my keyboard to scale those together and sort of pinch those together. Okay, now that starts to slope this piece of geometry from this kind of back curve up to this new curves that we just reshaped. So I can now grab this curve. I'll do the same thing. So we can come in here. This might be a little bit easier if I were to switch to my side view here. So I'll switch to my right view. I'll start by just tagging some of these points down here. And again, press and hold the T key when I'm finished making my adjustments here. And just start to kind of flatten out. Really that whole bottom piece is what I'm trying to sort of flatten here. There we are. This might be a little bit easier to see if I were to come in here and switch on my headlight, so that way we can actually see underneath here. Okay, now let's try to maybe fix some of this bulging that we have started to introduce here. So by reshaping some of these curves, we've essentially now kind of reshaped some of this surface up here toward the front, which is completely normal, but that's still pretty easy to fix. What we should be able to do is come in and just start to tag some of these points. And again, press and hold the T key on my keyboard. Come in here and start to grab just some of these points in here. And gradually start to pull those up and try to level those off a little bit. So again, just pull that up and try to eliminate as much of that unwanted curvature there as possible. So sometimes it takes just a little bit of massaging of these points to get this looking right, but overall should be a fairly straightforward process, just as long as it's pretty close. There we are. Very nice, and I'm sort of using this bottom part of the grid as my guideline here. Okay, so that is now this main body that has been built out for us, or at least this initial shape of our main body. So what we'll start to do in our next lesson is continue this process of adding some more detail into this initial shape that we have built up.